whatever reason. But here
Hmm.
we are. We are live. So excited to have folks join us to step away perhaps from the Democratic National Convention. So we know you could be anywhere, but thanks everybody for hanging out with us. I'm Dr. Latanya Reese Miles, also known, better known as LT, representing First Gen and Juice. Hold on. I'm hearing feedback. Representing First Gen and Juice right now, and I'm joined today with my brothers, fellow Doom lovers. Is that what we said?
Oh yeah.
Fellow nerds, fellow first gens, like all the things. So super. Mike is represent everybody. Everybody flexing right now. Yes, yes, yes. So we're gonna go around. We are talking today about the one and only Victor Von Doom, super villain,
Hmm.
super genius as well. But we are going to focus on his first gen story and would love to hear from folks like, have you even thought about him in this
Hmm.
way?
Hmm.
But Augustine, we're going to start with you first, brother. If you could
Yes.
introduce yourself and talk about why are you excited for this conversation today?
Yeah. So, hi everybody. My name is Augustine Rios. I'm part of Heroes Reforged on YouTube. I can't see the chat. If there is there a chat right now? I can't see the
Oh,
chat.
the chat is
Okay.
popping.
Okay. Good. 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 Part of Heroes Reforged. Also, an instructional designer. And also a first gen student. I was the first one in my immediate family to go to college, which was wild. And we were talking with Mike a little bit earlier, and I never realized how unique and kind of special it is to be a first gen person. And so when LT kind of, I didn't know about first gen until I met LT, and LT was like, Doom's kind of like a first gen person. I was like, oh my God, of course he is. That's crazy. But yeah, very excited. So that's kind of what brings me into the conversation. I also, I've been talking comic books and nerds, and it's been my life for forever. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and we can
Okay,
kind of
wait,
get
wait.
into
What
it.
you
I
got
guess.
on your collar right here,
Oh, right
Augustine?
here, it's
What is that?
a little Doctor Doom pin. It's like the classic '60s Doom with a little starburst behind it. So yeah, I'm just kind of repping a little bit of the Doom right there. But a lot
I
of my Doom
love it.
merch is actually MF Doom stuff. So yeah,
Woohoo! We're gonna hear more about that, I believe.
yes.
All right. Thank you for that, Augustine and Mike. Who you is and what? Why are you excited today?
So my name is Mike Erminetta, a huge nerd growing up. I'm educational researcher and data scientist in a college in New York. But everyone I knew growing up, as I was talking to these guys, it was just like they were first gen. So I actually didn't know that that was a thing because everyone I knew was like, including my wife, my brother-in-law. So like I thought that was just the experience until you meet people outside of that circle, and then they tell you, "Oh no, my college experience was completely different from that."
You mean like Reed Richards, for
Yeah,
example?
yeah, like
Oh,
Reed Richards, who
Ooh,
had his college paid
yeah,
for by his rich
yeah,
my
yeah.
daddy.
scientist
Hmm.
daddy. You know, I was like, so I didn't, I was like, I didn't put that together until much later
Hmm.
after
Yeah,
I started doing research on first gen students, and which brings us to why I'm here today.
yeah.
I was attracted to every character that I've always been attracted to had some aspect of first gen, underdog story. And
Hmm.
so
Mm.
against, the whatever is the standard narrative. So that was the, my attraction to this conversation. And I'm looking forward to like really getting into it.
So I feel like Mike is putting it out there in the universe. This is going to be the first of a few conversations. I have a feeling, but Mike, I know you got some like show and tell, right?
Oh,
What you got? What you got? What you got? Okay,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
love it. That we're going to probably circle back to the very
All
end in
right, all right.
just a minute. All right, let's hear from and you all see the Felicia's here, Justin's here, Cheeser 28. Thank you all for listening right now and for chiming in. Um, Aaron, who are you and why are you excited?
Dr. Aaron Jones. I'm very excited to be here among these wonderful folks. I myself am as well first gen college students, and I think like I really didn't think about it when I was an undergrad, but then
Yeah.
going into education, we talk about it a lot, and I currently work at Ventura College, which is a community college in Southern California. I serve as the dean of the sciences there. as well, my work before now has been mostly in student affairs, so working directly with students, supporting their development and growth outside of the classroom. And I think I come to this conversation as a lifelong nerd. I literally have mounds and mounds of comics that, if they fell over, I'd be hurt. Marvel comics especially, Doctor Doom has definitely always been one of the most interesting characters in general, but definitely one of the most interesting villains. When LT brought up this conversation, I was like, I'm so excited.
He's
I
like,
have
book it.
It's
Immediately.
happening.
Immediately.
I have the pleasure too of being a part of a podcast where I talk nerdy all the time. It's a part of the Inaudible Raucous universe, and we call the our version Blurs in the Trap. So it's me and my college roommate, and he and I talk about anything from wrestling to comics to what's happening in the news, and as well the films and all of the interconnections. Really excited to be here and to have this conversation, because as you can see from my background, I'm ready.
Let's
Mhm.
go.
Yeah. Oh
Well,
yeah.
let's go.
Oh yeah.
Actually, this is a great comment to start with right here from CL Alvarez, because a lot of folks aren't really familiar with Dr. Doom. So we're going to jump right in it right now and talk about his origin story, because that's really important. Anyone wants to jump in? I'm happy to fill in and anyone, but I'm going to defer to any three of you who want to talk a little bit more about who Victor Von Doom is and how he got his start. Anyone excited to just get it going?
I can jump in.
You go.
I can
You
easily jump in.
go.
Okay, so Victor Von Doom, born of two Romani people. So he was very much an outcast born in society right off the bat. Downtrodden. His mother was pursued. Eventually started digging into some dark arts a little bit, and unfortunately was sucked into hell by Mephisto himself. And so that's very much paraphrasing his story as well. There was a lot of drama. His father was not a great father. After his mother passed away,
Yeah.
Dr. Doom, was very not even jaded on life. He was angry at the world and at life for the hands he was dealt. And then as he got older, he himself started dabbling in a little bit of the dark magic, to try to get, a little bit of revenge, maybe get his mom back. We don't know. Like, there's a couple stories that are really interesting about him pining for the love of his mother. Obviously, very much paraphrasing, because there's comics on comics on comics on
Sure.
this story.
Yeah.
And eventually that leads him to want to be the best. And therefore he meets Reed at the I forgot what the institute was called.
The State University. All
Yeah,
right. But
the
hold on.
university, right?
Hold
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
before we get there.
I'm jumping ahead. I'm jumping
All
ahead.
right. No, that's good. Hold on. Let me just check in with Mike or Aaron to see if there's anything you want to say about, like, maybe before he comes to the U.S., right? Because we
Mhm.
forget that he's a refugee, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
People don't
Yeah.
think, but yeah, okay, go for it, Mike.
Sure, yeah.
Your Mike's sitting
So,
up now. All right,
uh,
go ahead.
So a good comic for this is the graphic novel Triumph and Torment. They do a really good summary of
Yes.
it there. So yes, the mother's in the dark arts. She gets killed for that. Mephisto takes her, but now he's like wandering around the country. He's trying to learn all this stuff too, but he's on the run. And then eventually he's taken in by somebody. He's hidden, but so he goes to all the libraries and he's starting to learn everything himself. So it's
Right.
a little like the Hamilton story there, right? He's just learning from stuff in libraries, going
Ooh.
around.
Mhm,
Oh,
mhm, mhm.
no, you didn't go there.
Oh, I did,
Yeah.
right?
Oh.
So he's learning this, and somebody spots him and says, "This guy's gifted." So he gets sponsored. He comes over to the United States, under a grant or a scholarship, and then he just starts learning everything, just kicking ass, doing all kinds of stuff. Am I missing anything? Just feel
No,
free
no,
to
no,
No,
that's
no,
good. No. Go ahead.
Good.
Go ahead.
Keep going.
Go ahead. Aaron,
All
what
right.
you want to say?
Go ahead.
Aaron, was there something you wanted to add to that? Because
Oh no, I
Mike
was
was
like,
talking about.
you're doing it. You're
Mike-
you're killing
Mike
it.
was doing it right. Because I mean,
Alright.
we're looking at this through the lens of when we say first gen, we're talking about folks who whose parents and caregivers did not graduate from college, and so they're in effect the first in their, not necessarily literally the first, but like the first generation to go, right? And one of the things I've observed is that Victor is not thought of in that way. All
Right.
the things that Mike was talking about, essentially orphaned, right? Essentially a scholar doing things on his own, a scholarship student, like all those things are important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
and
much, very much.
and I think a big thing is like highlighting his intellect. It's about him not just uh, being smart, but trying to use that intellect and the inventions and that mix of the dark arts and trying to do better for his life and that sort of starts to create these folks to be his followers, and it's about his community, it's about his family. I'm not trying to be discarded and disrespected the way that my family was and is, and I'm trying to overcome those issues, which is so similar to many first gen stories, is that we're just trying to do better than the generation before us. Like,
A
if you
lot.
can talk about if you can talk about your families, like for me, like, it's not that my family wasn't smart enough to get into college. It's just that those options weren't as readily available.
Mm.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they were completely capable and able, but circumstances and situations and their family systems didn't sort of make that an option or an opportunity. But once they sort of set you up for those possibilities, then it's kind of all on your shoulders to be able to take it to the whatever that next level is. And that
Mm.
is a big huge part of what Doom's story is that he is always, and there's the sort of the competition between him and Reed Richards, and
Uh-oh.
he feels
Uh-oh.
some level of imposter syndrome because
Okay, hold
he's
up, hold
always,
up.
I know that, yeah, I'm jumping ahead, but like it's just
This is
sort of
gonna turn the
it's
hate
such an
read
intense
chat.
it's such an intense sort of storyline and character journey, is him trying to overcome his feelings of inadequacy, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Very well put.
Okay, that's a good place to pick up. All right, so hopefully folks have a good understanding of his life, his circumstances. I don't know if it was made clear, but he was orphaned. Both parents, mom died first, dad died after that, and him essentially trying to like not just do right by his family, but do right by his people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That he was um yeah, so we just got to keep that in mind. All right, so like Mike said, he gets recruited basically, right?
Basically.
Top, like, come on over here with a scholarship.
The dean
And like I
shows
said,
up. The dean shows up to
Yeah.
is like, hey, look, I heard about you,
I heard
and
Yep.
about you, dog.
you need to come into school.
Yep.
That's one of the iterations of the story. Like there's like a couple of different versions because modernization and whatnot. But one of the oldest stories is like the dean just shows up in his village and it says, "Hey, I heard about you. Like you need to come to this school. Full ride. Don't worry about it." So
Yep.
yeah, it's intense.
Well, first of all, what a badass, right? And then if we think of him like as like a metaphor for first gen students, like some of us feel like that happened to us, right? That someone like kind of showed up or tapped us on the shoulder, but like, oh, you got this gift, and then you are transported to this new world, which
Mhm.
is in this case to State University. So this is where, and I will step back, but we'll talk about Reed Richards enters the picture because
Mhm.
they are roommates initially. All right. Anyone want to pick up from that and talk a little bit more and talk, because we gotta really talk about the relationship between those two, right?
I
Mike, do
took
you
the
want
last
to?
one, so you guys
Yeah, Mike, go
take
ahead.
the
Mike
next
was
one.
going for it. Talk.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
talk
so
about
if I
that.
recall correctly, they were roommates first, and then they just could not stand each other.
Let's get into that.
Partially because, like, Victor was always like doing things on his own, and it makes me think. I was like, was he choosing to do things on his own, or was there no support for him?
Get
Was there
into
no
it.
invitation to
Mhm.
any of the things that was
Mhm.
happening? Right. Reed, on the other hand, his father was already a renowned scientist. He comes to school. Yes, he's brilliant. Yes, he's got all of that. But he already knows how the system works. So he's just casually going along.
Right.
So Reed and Reed and Victor are just like bumping heads. And so Victor was like, I'm out of this. I don't need any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so Reed bunks with Ben Graham, who's like the star athlete. So technically he's also first gen, but he's also, but they seem to gel better. So they become this thing that like, oh, and they're best friends, etc. Victor again isolates himself. And then again, this is also part of that first gen story. It's like, okay, that isolation is happening for two reasons. One of them, he's isolating himself, but also there's nothing out there inviting him into the greater community.
Right.
So you makes you wonder, the combination of those two things helps, it gives you that lens of what he's going through and what he's working on.
So when I worked as a counselor in programs for first gen and low income students, EOP, one of the first things that we try to teach those students, or help those students understand, is that while college, you're prepared to do all of these individual activities, and you're being prepped up by virtue of your intellect, really what you learn when you get to college is that the social aspect and the community building and the support that you get and seek out from others, whether that be a mentor, an advisor, or an instructor, whatever it may be, those are the things that will help you to be successful. But we're sort of socialized to do everything on our own. We have to get here on our own. And we don't even expect that support to be present, but it exists. I was curious when I was rereading some of these stories. It's like, where were the RAs? Where's the staff to support Doom? Like, there's no one to help him.
Exactly. Where's student affairs? Okay.
There's nobody helping him, and they pair him with someone who they probably, like, where was the paperwork saying the roommate match? Like, they don't match. Just because they're both smart doesn't mean that things match,
I love that, Aaron. And I don't know if y'all could see the comment from Felicia, who wants to know, were they besties? Felicia, I'm wondering if you were talking about Reed and Victor, or Reed and Ben, but we can talk about that a little bit more. I mean, Aaron was hitting on that, this idea of like, oh, let's put two really smart people in this room together. In other words, Reed and Victor, and that was a clash, right? And I think one of the things we were talking about is some of this is a class like conflict, right? And we hinted at this a little bit, but Reed's dad was a physicist. You know what I mean?
World renowned.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else that, can you all see the comments that I'm showing? Okay, perfect. I just make sure. Yeah,
definitely. I think there's a lot to be said there, right? I, being first gen, I felt like I was always at a disadvantage. I didn't go to a traditional college because I didn't know about traditional college. I went to a for-profit school that got shut down for predatory practices. Like, I ended up getting kind of the short end of the stick, right? And that's because I didn't have that knowledge that I think it's called just knowledge wealth, or wealth of knowledge, that
funds of knowledge.
So I didn't have that because my parents, I love my parents. They were 1,000% supportive of me, but they also didn't have that knowledge. My dad is an immigrant from Mexico. He got a third grade education, and he stopped because he had to support his family. My mom, the same. Like, she also had a third grade education. They immigrated to the United States when they were 18 and 17, and then started working in the field, started picking strawberries. Like, all they knew was work, right? And so for me, being a confused kid, I went to a private Catholic high school, you guys. A bunch of rich white kids around me. I was one of two Mexican kids there. Like, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a freshman was. I didn't know the term freshman, sophomore, juniors. I didn't know anything. And so to me, it was like jumping into a whole new world. And I felt like I was 1,000 degrees below everybody, because everybody just kind of knew everything. Everybody already knew what college they wanted to go to. Everybody kind of knew the path to get there, because they were legacy families. Like, the rich people sent their kids to this school, and some kids came in as freshmen, and the whole school knew them because they had a specific last name. of a
Mhm.
family that has been going there for years at this point. And so I understand Doom 1,000% because he had to bust his ass to get to where he was. Let's
Right.
not forget, we're painting him actually in a very positive light. He's actually a villain.
Yeah.
He's,
Yeah.
he's
We're gonna get into
actually a
that.
bad guy. But you know, like all the stuff that he had to do to get to the point to where he was, just to prove himself, is astounding in itself. And he had everything stacked against him, and he grows up. I mean, he does grow up, but then he gets to this point where he is, I would say, one of the greatest threats in the MCU, because he's just that unstoppable. He will never die, because he's just smarter than everybody. He's got everybody countered. And so
Yeah.
that's I think that's how I kind of relate to him as far as like the first gen experience goes.
Well, I
Um,
mean, villains have point of view too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I think that's important. I don't know if Ronan Unchained was referring to that, particularly when they say don't call him that, please. I think I was with respect to the villain part. But okay, but let's talk about the prank that that Reed plays on him when Victor receives an award. Remember this part? He receives an award and they change his name and from Doom to Doof.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's wasn't that like in an early 60, like an early
Like-
version of the comics, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so in the storyline it's like, oh, look at that, prankster Reed again. But
Yeah.
Victor took great offense to that.
Mhm.
Right. And so if we see it from Reed's point of view, is like he's joking and Victor just has a stick up his ass. But let's look at it from Victor's point of view. And I say that, it's a bit different. Aaron, I don't know if you were going to say anything about that.
Yeah, it's this situation that many times the villain is just someone who has taken their perspective to an extreme, and maybe some of their ideas are a little clouded. And there are iterations of Doom where he tries to save the world in his way. Um, um, and saving the world for him is him being in control of it.
Right.
because
he knows
he comes
better.
from
'Cause he knows better.
circumstances he comes from circumstances where he
Yeah.
had no control.
Right.
And he's trying to establish, and that's I could make assumptions too about why Robert Downey Jr. said what he said. Because
Okay, hold on.
We're all very eager.
But
very eager to
ultimately,
talk.
really, like it's yes, he's a villain. He's the antagonist of our story again. With the Fantastic Four and the other Marvel superheroes. But it comes from a place of that's the way that he was acculturated and how he tried to find his way to survive, right? And so that's how I've looked at and thought of Doom, is that if this was if he had an alternate upbringing or a situation, and he could have turned out much different. It may have been the Reed to Reed's Doom. They could have definitely switched places. So.
Interesting. So, Mike, I want to ask you something. Let's get into the disfiguration of Dr. Doom and there's an accident that occurs in the residence hall. Actually, again, where are the RAs?
Right. Where are the
Right.
Could I just go back to that?
Yeah.
To the so Doom to Doof, right? So
sorry.
college prank, sure, right? But to the person that's being pranked, to the loner, to the person who's the outsider, that is absolutely devastating. And it completely makes me understand why he surrounds himself with robot duplicates. Because I can control them. They're not gonna mess with me. So I was like, I trust these guys because I have complete control over them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The opposite dynamic is, the Fantastic Four is a family, right? So they got family, they're surrounded by love, et cetera, et cetera. But I could completely understand why he'd go that way because of things like that.
good thing, right? Also, it's hella disrespectful as well. Like it's his, it's his name, it's his family name, and then for someone to pass it off
Right.
as, oh, why don't you lighten up? Or, I'm just joking with you, man. Like that's a microaggression.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
You don't know what it took for me to get here.
You
you
Right.
know?
Ooh,
Right.
Yeah.
literally,
Right.
literally, yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, well let's shift a little bit because now we're really getting into like the origin of the villainy, I suppose, um, which is about the the experiment that literally blows up in his face, right?
Mhm, mhm.
In the dorm room, but we won't get
Yeah.
into that. But as a result of a experiment he is creating to help once again save his mother and also save his community, it literally blows up and destroy and disfigures his face. How are we thinking about that when it comes to either a first gen experience or just about how do you think it impacted his journey, I should say?
Oh,
I
that's
mean, it
good.
was the defining moment in his journey.
Mm,
That's when he dons the
mm,
mask, right?
mm.
That's when he decides to cover himself in metal and hide himself from the world. Because he I think his insecurities, maybe his feelings of inequity kind of realized themselves on his face and he couldn't hide it anymore. So he puts on this shiny chrome to put a different face out to the world. And I feel like I kind of do that sometimes, like try to hide my inequities with just only showing the best parts of myself, right?
Yeah,
I always remember the movie Selena, where the dad goes, "We gotta be more Mexican than the Mexicans, and we gotta be more white than the white people." So I'm
right.
just like,
Mm,
yeah, I always feel like I have to be as good or better than the people who don't accept me on both sides of the spectrum, because I'm in the middle. I'm Mexican American, and so that suit of armor just immediately just clicked with me. I'm like, yeah, that's what you kind
Wow.
of have to wear to go out into the real world. And I feel like that was Doom's his catalyst to kind of pushing him over to be a villain, obviously, because it was a horrible experiment that kind of made him really angry, but also he had to do what he had to do to kind of cope with his horrible disfigurement and really make the world take him seriously.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I think that's the moment. I think that's why I love Doom so much, because he's the guy coping with the hands he was dealt, and he's the illest villain, I would say.
The illest villain. I love it.
Yeah.
Mike or Aaron, you want to add anything?
I love because in some storylines he disappears.
Mhm.
Like Reed Richards is like, oh, I had this roommate. He
Yeah, what
disappeared,
happened?
and then my man comes back in charge of a country in
With
full armor.
with subjects and like worshipers and yeah.
So I love that story. I was like, oh, you forget about me?
Right?
Yeah.
Because here I
Oh,
am.
look at
Right?
me.
Exactly.
I got a sovereign nation.
What?
The ultimate underdog story.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it reminds me, especially more recently, of Killmonger, right? And the
Mm.
from Black Panther, the sort of the extreme nature of it, but also another first gen, like the little bit that we hear about him. First of all, orphan, and I remember there was a moment in Black Panther where they talk about him, like his degrees and all this type of stuff. I'm like, how he get there? What trio program was he part of to get there? 'Cause he did not do that by himself, right? But yeah, but you have to talk about
Yeah.
what it was. How did people get there, right? What
Right.
you
Right.
don't know their backgrounds for sure.
Mhm.
Got a few more comments. Our boy Hector's like, wouldn't be surprised if Victor took care of those RAs.
Took care.
Hector, you a fool.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him, right? Right? Doom would be that guy.
Yeah. So what are our feelings about the villainy aspect? Because again, we've been framing this as like a first gen narrative. And to be honest, we don't typically talk about first gen narratives in that way.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, first gen students or first gen experience is very romanticized, right? Or kind of like very simplistic. Oh, someone worked hard and they graduated from Harvard and they had the best life. But this is something different, right? If we're,
Yeah.
what are your oh yes, look here's Felicia is going to add something to this too. A bit of a so diplomatic, a bit of a narcissist. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
how are we thinking about that? Do we feel comfortable with a first gen villain?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Talk about
We
it.
come in all shapes and sizes, right?
Yeah, we do.
And yeah, he is a villain, but he's also not a villain when it suits him, like he chose his
Mm,
path. He has helped the Avengers do crazy stuff, and he's also hindered the Avengers from doing stuff. I mean, he created Warworld. He became God Doom, where he recreated the universe in his own image, dressed in white, ripped Thanos' spine out in just one move, right? And so, yeah, like he's doing what he thinks is the best for the world and the universe. Can you call that villainy? Maybe. Can you call that kind of a good thing? Well, Jim thinks it is. Like, if he thinks I'm gonna live a good life, I'm like, maybe this guy's got a point. Like, maybe I will become Latvian one day. Are they eating well? Yes.
I
Do they
didn't
have
know the question.
medicine?
Are they eating
Yeah.
well?
Do they have magical healing
That's-
abilities? Yeah. That's
For
not so
real?
bad. Yeah.
For real, that often is the thing, is that, like, people will come to Latveria and say, like, let these people go. It's like, my people are taken care of. I don't know about y'all,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
none of my people are trying to leave. They can leave
Yeah.
if they want, but
They're
they're not
good.
going to leave
That's
because they know that they're taken care of under Doom.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And again, he has his way, and he is narcissistic for
Yeah.
sure, and an egomaniac, and but at the same time, when the chips are down and the most intelligent people in the Marvel universe, your Reed Richards, your Tony Starks, they know that if they really need the smartest people in the world to come together, they're going to call Doom. People come to Doom
Yeah.
and ask him for help.
Mm.
If you think about some of the newer X-Men comic books, where they have sort of this I'll say sort of they've created their paradise away from the rest of the world on the island of Krakoa, and basically they're inviting all mutants to be on this island, and there's unlimited food, and we'll take care of you. You can get resurrected and all those kinds of things, and they try to go to Latveria. And say, hey, release the mutants that live there. Let them come to Krakoa and get the resources that we have over here. And he's like, no, my mutants are taken care of.
We're
Like,
good.
Right. They even
they're
asked
fine.
him.
And then they pull up and they're like, no, we're good. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're the
Yeah.
villains here, like, because Latveria and the mutants that live here,
Yeah.
we're good.
Would you
Good.
say Mike was
Oh no, it's exactly as I'm saying. It's like they pull up and the mutants who are there who are like, no, we good. It's good here.
Oh,
Like,
What
who
you
told
talking
you?
about?
Who told you what? Who told you that?
Like, why do we need to go anywhere else?
who said that?
We're good.
Ooh.
But with regards to that narcissist comment, it's like, I mean, yeah, but he got the receipts.
Right.
he's-
Exactly. It's
What
not
you mean by that?
unfounded.
What do you mean by that? Explain
So-
that.
Like, all right, so you any top 5 list of the smartest people in the Marvel universe includes Doctor Doom. On top of that, like, oh, which one of these 3 people could be Sorcerer Supreme? Also Doctor Doom. So my man is
Right?
like Reed Richards and like Doctor Strange all rolled up into one.
Yep.
No, he did. He did a
Yup.
Venn diagram.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Exactly.
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Let's get into this. Augustine and Aaron,
Uh-huh.
you were in Hall H this summer when
Yep.
a little announcement went out that Robert Downey Jr., who has played Iron Man in the MCU, is now cast as Victor Von Doom in the next Avengers movie. Thoughts?
You're just gonna leave
Okay.
us like that? Okay.
Okay. Here's the thing. I would love to know your reaction, but I do want to think about because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't
Mhm.
know, is he a version of Tony Stark, right? Is he his own distinct Victor Von Doom? Lots of theories about that, but I'm really curious to knowing that Tony Stark, like Reed, right, is comes from legacy,
Yeah.
right? Comes
Mhm.
from money. It'll be interesting to see how this character is played as well. But all right, Augustine, go for it.
Oh man, for me, this issue. So I was there sitting at Hall H,
Yeah,
just like
set the
you.
scene.
Yes.
What were you
I was sitting there
smelling?
next
What
to
were
my
you?
buddies, next to Hector and Adam. We were so excited. I called it an hour earlier. I was like, I think they're gonna announce the next actor for Doom. Like I just felt it in my bones. And so, everything happens. The time comes. All the Doom bots walk out on stage, and Robert Downey Jr. rips off the mask. The place erupts. It
Yeah,
was madness in there. It was loud in there. I
Oh yeah.
cheered and I screamed, but it was mainly out of like, what is going on? Am I seeing this? Is this real? Like, what is this? Because it was such a shock to me. Like, I was
right.
like, oh my God. But not in the way that everybody else was saying, oh my God. Like, everybody else has started chanting, Robert Downey Jr., Robert Downey Jr. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But then, there's a moment, all the things happen. And then there's a moment where Kevin Feige goes, any questions? He wasn't there to answer questions. He drops the mic and leaves.
Oh, of
Like,
course. Who got? Yeah.
everything's over, right? And I was like, yes, I have 1,000 questions. Hold
Me,
on.
me, me.
Where are you going? Me. Right? And so
For
it
real.
was such a shock that me and my buddies talked about it for almost 3 days straight. Like, we are just so kind of flabbergasted by this decision, because for me, I think Robert Downey Jr. was such a champion of the MCU. He was also, downtrodden when they chose him as Tony Stark. He was just
Mm,
coming off, being sober. He
yeah.
was a risk when they chose him as Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man, and I'm sorry, as Tony Stark in Iron Man 1. He got a lot of criticism for that. And so for him to overcome that, to become the face of the MCU, to be the man we all cried for in Endgame, like that scene where he said, I am Iron Man at the end, was just, it got to me deeply. And now to bring him, I thought he was a character that we were never going to see again, and to bring him back for another character that I love so deeply in Doctor Doom, I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, is this a good choice? Who made this choice? I don't understand this. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man no matter what, because he accepted the
Ooh,
character in the MCU, but also in real life. Like, he was just the guy. He
Yeah.
yeah.
was just the guy, the representation of the MCU. And so to have him take up this mantle in some way, shape, or form, to me feels kind of misguided. And to me feels like, I don't know. There's just so many questions. I feel like I need to see the product at this point, and we won't see it for years at this point. So
Yeah.
yeah,
At
yeah.
least like
Okay. All right.
2 years.
So
Those are my
Aaron,
thoughts. Those are my thoughts.
Aaron, you were there. Mike and I weren't there, but
Mhm.
I want to hear Mike's thoughts too. But Aaron, what was your reaction?
Yes, similarly, and I had a friend say that it was almost like a probate, and it's hilarious enough.
For
I
for
am
for folks who are in Greek letter organizations, yes.
I and and I'm an alpha. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and we definitely had some interesting mass on my probate day. And like, because they had the like you said, the Doom bots march out, and then he comes and reveals himself, and he's holding back a smile, like he's trying to like almost kind of be in somewhat of a character, but he's feeling the energy and
Yeah. Yeah.
the
It was a
excitement
cool
that's in the
reveal.
room.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think I felt similarly, that like the initial feeling was shock, that I knew that there were rumors about him returning in some way, shape, or form because of a variety of people's feelings about the MCU and where it is and whatnot, which I don't agree with 95% of it. But I felt like, oh my God, like he's back and he's doing Doom. Like, so then, yeah, the question started to kind of roll up. But I feel like I'm typically optimistic because I'm trying to think of the creative machinations to make this work, and even the speculation that it forces us to go into because of the various stories that have existed in the comics, where it could be that he's a variant. It could be he's either a variant of Tony or a variant of Doom, or he's he's Doom taking on the face of Tony Stark, and he's using that as sort of a tool to manipulate the heroes, because he might know about the emotional feeling in his death. So there's a whole lot of different directions that they could take it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of anticipating as well, and we won't get it for like 2 years. But like I want to see it, but I am, in my heart of hearts, really hoping for a more traditional representation of a separate actor to be a version of Doctor Doom that can continue beyond the hype of this current phase. Right, because I feel like there's definitely a need for a reset. There's going to be this integration of the Marvel X-Men characters after Secret Wars. So the next movie, the next Avengers movie, will be Doomsday, which will set up for
the one after
Secret
that.
Wars.
Yeah.
And I don't even understand how they're gonna fit.
Yeah.
Like
and
how
Greg,
they're gonna fit all these people in this movie.
I know, and Greg has a theory here. I'll post it in a second. But Mike, I want to ask you: were you optimistic or pessimistic? How were you feeling about this?
So I was really kind of confused. See, so my thoughts on Downey are this: I was like, I loved him as Iron Man. I thought he was perfect.
Okay.
So, but I also know that he's a great actor. So on one hand, I'm confident he could do it. He's got the acting chops. He's got the gravitas. But on the other hand, I think it's kind of lazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
He's a legacy character. So now there's that legacy part, right? I think his movie, Victor Von Doom's movie origin, needs to honor his character origin.
Yeah, the way we just discussed it.
Yeah. It needs to honor those first gen elements. It needs to stand on its own 2 feet as a new character coming in, as a new actor. I would have much preferred an actor who hasn't been in the universe before, someone who could be seen as an underdog that proves himself as somebody is like, oh, who is this guy? I mean, when they were tossing around Cillian Murphy, I was like, okay, I can see that. That could be exciting. That could be
a younger one, though.
A younger one, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who comes in, who is like fresh, and it's just like kills it,
right?
Kills it, and it's like, oh, that's distinct. That's different. That's exciting.
Yeah. So here, Greg, I'll share Greg's thought here. That he's Victor Von Doom from a different universe, right? Which kind of like, again, we understand that, but I appreciate. And I appreciate what you were just saying, Mike, too. Like, why not have him have his own story in his own universe, and then, kind of go from there. In some ways, kind of reminds me of Al Pacino and his performance in The Godfather. Like, you get this like fresh face, and then like you see the transformation. That's what I would love to see. Right. And you're like, should I be rooting for this person or not? I kind of think he's fly.
Yeah. You should have that. Yes.
That element right there.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too much into the fan casting stuff, but very quickly, do you guys have an actor in mind who if Tony's, I'm sorry, if oh my God, I forgot. If Robert Downey Jr. Sorry, I'm all tangled up. Robert Downey Jr. It was not cast as Dr. Doom, and it was a fresh character. Who would your actor be? Who would you want to be Dr. Doom in the MCU? Do you guys have any ideas or any fan casting?
I had a slight idea, and
tell us.
I don't know if it would have worked or if it could work in the future. Adam Driver.
Ooh,
that could work.
No, you
interesting.
Did.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I can see that.
Mike went from no to yes.
Yeah.
Mike perked up real quick.
I remember when that name was tossed in the hat, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I could see that.
Damn.
I could see that."
Yeah,
That's good.
I
He
think that's a
plus
good one.
they need to redeem that last Star Wars one. I'm still mad
Mhm.
about that. I'm still mad at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
last
Yeah,
Skywalker. What
absolutely.
what about you, Augustine?
I've had this idea in my head and I will never let it go. First of all, I wanted Reed Richards to be Oscar Isaac, but he's not. We're getting Pedro Pascal, right? But I
Ah,
wanted my doctor. I want my
ah,
Doctor Doom to be Javier Bardem. After
okay.
No Country for Old Men, after seeing him as that villain, I was like, that's Doom. That's the guy who can play Doom right there with that kind of stoicness. You don't need to see his face. He's
But
just like,
older Doom, Doctor
yes,
Doom,
Doctor Doom. He's
not
like a
yeah,
big, imposing guy. That guy can fit into that costume so well. He's got to
yeah.
have like huge shoulders, and he's got to be able to, don the armor in a way where you just see his silhouette, and you're like, that's the guy. That's my guy. And I feel like he
Mm,
kind of has a little bit. He could put on a little bit of that accent because he's Spanish, so he can kind of have a little bit. But I know there's a big push for a Romani actor because Doctor Doom is a Romani, a fictional Romani character. So I'm also not opposed to that. I just don't know very many or any
yeah.
Romani actors that could fill the role. So
But can I just say though, after I saw No Country for Old Men, it's hard for me to look at Javier and say that dude is scary,
right, hey, that's what I'm saying.
and
You
he don't
need
have to
that.
do too much. He don't even have
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
do too much. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's why
Yeah.
I love Doom because he doesn't have to do much. He's got all
Mm,
these theatrics around him, right? He can just stand
mm,
in the room in that classic pose with his arms crossed,
yeah,
floating in midair, and
yeah.
you know he's the most terrifying person in the room. And that's
Looking
yeah,
fresh and fly with a cape, yo.
yeah, exactly. Just fluttering in the wind lightly. That's perfect. It's perfect.
Yes.
Wait,
Yeah.
who'd you say is playing Reed Richards?
Pedro
It's
Pascal.
Pedro Pascal.
He is
Yeah.
in the new Avengers.
Yeah. No, in the
Oh,
new Fantastic Four
oh,
movie.
the new Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. He's Reed.
really? Okay,
Yes.
okay. I
Yes.
can't hate that.
Yeah.
I
I
can't
mean,
hate that.
look, we all love Papa Pedro, right? Like he's the internet daddy right now, and there's
Absolutely.
Okay.
nothing wrong with that. I love that man. He's astoundingly talented. In my bones, I just feel like Javier Bardem is like the Doom that I would have wanted, but
Oh,
it's okay. Well, we'll see, and Oscar Isaac too. I wish we'd have had
like
two
like
Latino
you
kind of
going to
like men
Latino?
going back and
Yeah.
forth, but also Pedro Pascal is Latino as well, so I cannot be
Let's
mad at
do
that
it.
either.
Come
Yeah,
on now.
I'm okay with that. I'm
I'm
okay with
okay.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
totally. It's a
I'm
Kamala
with it.
Harris world. Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's go. That's
All
right.
Latino cast. I'm with it.
Yep.
All right. Before we log off and before we go watch Kamala Harris, is there anything else you want to say about this character or the first gen experience of Victor Von Doom? I'm hoping that people have a greater, if they didn't know about him before, do some homework and have a greater appreciation for this character. He really is a very straight up. He is a nuanced character. I
Mhm.
would say there are moments in which we don't get enough of his perspective in some of the stories, but nevertheless, I just feel like he's just phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
any one of you? Well, let's go
Um,
around. Let's go around.
so mine isn't necessarily focused on the first gen, but
Yeah.
because I know there is a lot of first gen people in kind of this culture, Doom's effect on MF Doom, who affected the hip hop culture so much, and the nod that
Oh
Marvel finally
yes,
gave MF Doom in the Doom comic. I actually have it right here because I knew we were gonna get into Doom. But we talked about this in the chat a little bit earlier. But there's in the new Doom
I
number
love it.
one that just came out maybe like 2 months ago. Doom's arguably best album, MF Doom's arguably best album, is called Mad Villainy, which he did with Madlib. And there's a line in one of his songs that says, "Living on borrowed time, the clock ticks faster." And in the new Doom, on the very first page, the first words on the page is, "Living on borrowed time, the clock ticks faster." And I'm like, we have come full circle, my friends. The
Yay!
Marvel universe has acknowledged the Doom,
Finally.
and I hope they like bring in, some kind of like MF Doom, Doctor Doom crossover in the MCU at some point. Yeah, there you go. See, he's got it too. He's got the Digicop. I
Don't
had
mess
to
this
I had
up,
to run
MC.
out. Yeah,
Marvel,
they
do
shouldn't.
not mess this up.
There's a lot, man. There's a lot to go into it, but also, like being in a kid of immigrants, I feel like I listen to a lot of stuff, but I feel like hip hop really kind of embraced me as being like a culture of like openness and acceptingness. I grew up in the 90s. I listened to a lot of Tribe and De La Soul and stuff like that. And that's what I very much clicked with. A big, huge underground hip hop fan. And so all of that felt very encompassing to me. And to see Doom represented in all of that to me was very, very exciting. So there's a lot of things about this character that just kind of like suck me in and are just so interesting. But yeah, that's my kind of take on it.
Love it. Aaron or Mike?
Oh, okay. The thing I'll talk about is narrative, because
Let me
he
get
had to
comfortable.
build his own story, right? He had to craft his story from scratch. Nobody could tell him what path to go. He created that path, right? And there's this one of the recent comics. It was like a Loki comic, I think, and I have it up here. I'm looking at it. He gets into a fight with Loki, who is right now the god of stories, and he in that story he says, "Okay, I'm gonna fight you," and Loki's like, "I'm peacing out," and he goes, "I'm gonna beat you at your own game." And how do you beat the god of stories at his own game? He says, "I'm just a better story than you." Right? He's like, "I am the old trunk filled with ancient mysteries. I'm the explosion in the college laboratory. I am the mask that burns with the fires of vengeance. I am the legend that unites this nation. I am the story of doom, and this story is better than yours." And then he does like this thing where he takes the time machine that he has, freezes him in it, and he says, "I'm pausing your story."
Damn.
It was the most gangster thing I ever
That
saw.
is gangster.
So he now he has like this statue of Loki in the middle of his like living room. And he's like,
God.
"I think I'm gonna put that in the library," and
Wow, that
with
gave
the
me
other
goosebumps.
I was like, that was gangster.
Yeah.
That is. I'm gonna have to use that. I'm gonna pause your story, right?
Yeah.
And mine will live on. That's bad. That's way to reclaim this notion of legacy.
Yeah.
Right. What we talked earlier about Reed Richards and whatnot, but and Tony Stark as well. But like to create your own legacy. That's what we're talking about. That was bad.
Yeah, that's dope. Um, I guess where I'll land is what I mentioned a little bit about earlier is when Robert Downey Jr. went up and took off the mask and revealed that he was going to be playing Victor Von Doom, he said, "New mask, same task." And if you think about the sort of
Mm.
function that Tony Stark had in the MCU movies, he wanted to put a suit of armor around the world. And so Doom is sort of this other side to the coin, that if you go too extreme and you I think what Augustine had mentioned earlier about the pseudo armor, right? Like you're trying to hide your vulnerabilities, and this is what happens when a first gen student doesn't um, open themselves up and seek out support and help, or they don't get sort of the open opportunity to or invited to get help, is that they go the complete opposite direction and they put a suit armor over themselves, and they keep it protects you to some extent, but it also keeps people out. And if you look back at a lot of Doom's history, is he has a very small circle, except it's the Doom bots and very few other people like Valeria and his heir, and just very few people. And I think that that's a part of the reason. I'm just speculating why they're sort of positioning Tony Stark as the new task. The new mask is different. It's Doom's mask now, but he's still going to go to that. He's going to take what Tony Stark did and go to the extreme, and his way or the highway. And it's about putting that suit of armor over the world and to protect himself from showing his vulnerabilities. Right. So all the things that I have done in my professional life have been to try to help folks like myself to open themselves up and to seek out help and resources, and not do things by yourself, to find community, right? So Reed has the legacy, he has the smarts, and he has the family, because that's what the
Family.
Fantastic Four is. They're the first family of Marvel. So the juxtaposition of them two is that Doom doesn't have anybody, but Reed has family and he has everything that he wanted. And when he became God Emperor Doom, what did he do? He took his family. He took his
Mm.
family and married his wife, took on his kids, and that's how he saw himself. And that's the main thing that he was missing.
Oh, can I say? Sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
So the downside of that storyline is if you get locked into it. So there's another comic I just pulled up where he, like Doom finds another multiverse version of himself, who he has the cosmic cube, he's got the infinity stones, he's got the all of that stuff, right? He's like the president of the earth. It's like everybody loves him, they're throwing parades. He has a conversation with this guy, and the guy's like, oh, you could have this happiness too if you only just wanted to. And the Doom that we know, he's not having it because he's sticking to his guns, he's sticking to his story, and he decides instead of trying to go for that, he just blows up that whole universe.
Yep.
Erased.
So I was like,
Boom.
He'll have none of it. He will
Right.
have none of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
so I mean, you can have a story, but sometimes you just gotta check that to your point, Aaron. It's like, like what else is out there? Who can I reach out to? Am I looking at this only in that way that is just this darkest path?
Mm.
Or is there another way to look at it? So
Yeah. Well, here's my 2 cents on this. Just going back to the origin, to the fact of like all the trauma that this young man experienced before he even got to school, all that he did on his own. It's going to be uncomfortable for him or anyone in a similar circumstance to ask for help, right? That's not how he got there. He
Right.
didn't get there asking for help. They sought him out, right? And I think many of us have been in that position too. And like, can you trust this help? Right? Like,
Yeah.
we waiting for the other shoe to fall, right? And so I can understand why he felt closed off. And I would say it's really, it's going to go back to the quote that was earlier. Where was the support? Where was the RAs?
Yep.
They went out of their way to travel all the way to get him. They should have done something to support him as well. And so I think when we're thinking about first gens, we want to keep that in mind too, and not put so much on the student.
Mhm.
Yeah, of course, we want students to be involved, but also if the campuses are doing all this recruiting and like saying, "Oh, first gen day," then we got to make sure that those students are taking advantage of the resources that are available to them. This has been an amazing conversation. I would love if anyone's still watching live and in the chat, let us know. Going back to what Mike said before about being like attracted to these kind of storylines in comics or other superhero narratives. If there's other ones you want us to talk about, I'd love to do this again with you three. So let us know in the chat if there's another sort of character like this that would what we would consider first gen. No one's gonna say in a comic I was first gen, but we see the seeds there and happy to explore what it means, how it impacts their narrative, and then what it also means for the first gen community in higher ed. I think it'd be a lot of fun to kind of have these periodically. Hopefully you all agree. Hope you had a good time.
Oh yeah, I had a
Yes,
blast.
indeed.
blast. Yeah.
Thanks to so it was so much, like the chat was really popping off. So we thank everyone for your comments and talking about the guy on the top right. Like, you had a lot of fans. Oh, Augustine,
Yeah.
do you want to say a little bit about your channel as well before we go?
Oh yeah. If you're interested, I recognize a lot of the people in the chat. But if there's anybody in the chat who doesn't know, Heroes Reforged on YouTube, also Instagram, and I don't talk about Twitter, so don't go on Twitter. But we're on all, I think, most of the major platforms. We react and review to a lot of stuff, and we started off with the MCU, but we also love everything else right now. We're deep into animation, by the way. I could talk Teenage
Ooh.
Mutant Ninja Turtles all day, which is an amazing
Uh-oh.
first gen story, LT. I don't know if you know this, but they're all first gen, caught in a Japanese world and an American world in the sewers. We need to talk about it, LT. We
Okay.
need to talk about it. But,
I may
yeah.
have to do a little bit of homework,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I'll
I'll
be
send you a
there for
book. I'll
sure.
send you a book.
Okay, we'll do. We're getting some kudos
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
chat, y'all. Thank you all for joining me tonight. It was just as I thought it was going to be, and I appreciate it and look forward to doing it again.
Same
Absolutely.
here. Yeah.
All right.
All right.